Hello everybody. Firstly, I'd just like to welcome you to this webinar where we'll be talking about Davos and the potential trading opportunities the event could present. My name is Sasha and I'm a financial analyst from the research department at Fortrade. If you have any questions, please call us to ask to speak to a senior account manager who'll be happy to help. Before I go any further, please take a moment to read our risk warning and disclaimer. I'm sure you know that although gains can be made trading CFDs, losses can be incurred too, and you need to be aware of this. Now, let's talk about market opportunities. If you don't know what they are, allow me to explain. A market opportunity is a one-page briefing containing market analysis, and our goal is to provide you with a simple-to-understand opportunity to trade on the markets. We will select an instrument such as gold or a currency pair, for example, and tell you our very best estimate on its price direction so that you can trade on it if you want to. Market opportunities are produced by the research department on a daily basis according to market conditions and based on historical evidence. A market opportunity consists of fundamental analysis, geopolitical events, and technical analysis that includes a pivot point and support and resistance levels. It's important to understand it's solely your decision whether you trade on market opportunities or not. So here's an example of a market opportunity. You can see fundamental analysis on what's going on with the pound-dollar currency pair. Below you can see some geopolitical events that can influence the currency pair, such as the resignation of the UK Brexit minister in this instance, or positive employment figures in the US. It's important to look at the pivot point on which the calculations are based. If the price reaches the level that you can see on the screen, that's 1.2840, this shows the right moment in our estimation to come in and open a trading position, had you decided to trade on this market opportunity when it was active. You can see that this is a weekly market opportunity, although we also have regular daily trading opportunities. You can see the direction here, which is down. It's important that you know how to use the stop loss and take profit options. You have support and resistance levels. At these points you can put a stop loss and take profit, and on the right hand side of the screen you have calculations. If you close the position using take profit, you can expect these kinds of profits to support 1, 2 and 3, and if the price is going against you, then you can potentially have a loss of the amount shown at resistance 1, 2 and 3. The pivot point is the starting price based on which resistance and support levels are calculated. The support and resistance levels here are for daily, weekly or monthly terms. Finally, profit and loss calculations are based on a one-lot trading volume. So Davos, what is it? Davos is a yearly meeting in Switzerland hosted by the World Economic Forum. In fact, its real title is the World Economic Forum, but it's usually referred to after the Swiss resort town of Davos, in which it's held. It's an elite gathering of over 2,500 leaders from business, academia, politics, journalism, and other sectors. They discuss the most pressing global issues of the day. This year, it will be held from January 21st to the 24th. The theme this year is Stakeholders for a Cohesive and Sustainable World. Climate change challenges and sustainable business models and technology will be the three main topics under discussion this year, in what promises to be an interesting discussion following global street protests calling for a climate change emergency to be declared over the past year. So, many heads of state will attend, including Donald Trump and Angela Merkel, Japan's Shinzo Abe, Brazilian President Bolsonaro, and Chinese Vice President Wang expected. New European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is also expected. This year there will be some notable absentees, including Chinese President Jinping, although some reports suggest he may sit down with Trump on the sidelines of the meeting. US Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and others, including Ivanka Trump, will also be in attendance, who will again draw attention of the media. Iraqi President Salih was also slated to attend, although he has tendered his resignation. And Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif will also appear, confirming his attendance straight after the killing of Iranian General Soleimani, setting the stage for a potential showdown with the US. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson will also be absent, and reportedly banned any ministers from attending as the government focuses on Brexit. However, last week Chancellor of the Exchequer, Javid, was given special dispensation to attend. For now, it's still unclear who will attend on behalf of Russia, but at the time of writing, Putin has no plans to attend, and the same is true for Turkey's Erdogan. The organisers will publish their final list of participants on January the 14th. So, what happened last time? Last year, the environment was one of the main themes, with the likes of environmentalist broadcaster David Attenborough and activist Greta Thunberg taking to the stage to demand action on climate change. The trade war was also high up on the agenda. President Trump was absent last year, but many global leaders lined up to argue for a return to rules-based free trade. Managing Director of the IMF at the time, Christine Lagarde, said that this was vital after the IMF cut its growth forecast for global economic growth. China's Vice President Wang emphasized that multilateralism was the best way to push for growth. And US Secretary of State Pompeo issued a positive video-linked speech, stating that a superpower conflict was not inevitable. Brexit and its connection with populist sentiment was also spoken of by delegates, with the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time stepping in for the absent Prime Minister at the time, May, last year, warning that while the vote should be respected, the danger of a no-deal Brexit must be avoided at all costs. Last year, the markets were not impacted by the goings-on in Davos to any great extent. The absence of market mover President Donald Trump or of any significant statements or disagreements by senior politicians made last year's Davos relatively quiet for investors. But in 2018, the meeting marked a low point between the US and many of its allies. US President Trump stated that the US would no longer turn a blind eye to unfair economic practices and use the global stage to promote his tax reforms in the US. Following his combative speech, Trump launched an attack on the media, drawing boos from some of those in attendance. Despite the criticism, US stocks reacted positively, and analysts believe part of the reason was directly due to Trump's comments talking about tax cuts and how much stocks have increased under his presidency. After these comments, as we can see here, the S&P 500 increased by 1.21%, although over the following week the index plummeted by 12.1%. This year's Davos meeting is shaping up to be more positive than previous years, with the shadow of the trade war set to be erased after the expected signing of the first phase trade deal between the US and China. But there is likely to be some tension and irritation at Davos, where many of the participants support free trade and are ideologically opposed against protectionism and tariffs. For example, the US is yet to agree with the EU, which is still subjected to US tariffs on aluminium. And the US has threatened to place tariffs on the key EU car industry, a subject that remains unresolved. The presence of top EU officials may allow for some discussion on this issue. There is likely to also be discussion on the current situation in the Middle East. President Trump is always keen to see lower crude oil prices, but US actions in the region continue to support higher crude oil prices, and Iran will no doubt be seeking international support to pressure Trump into backing away from sanctions on Iran, while the US will only consider doing so if Iran makes radical commitments on what the US considers its nuclear threat. Investors will also be on the lookout for any comments from business leaders and figures from financial institutions regarding the global economy. Any talk of a continued slowdown could spook markets and at the same time increase demand for safe haven instruments, supporting gold, for example, while predictions of a better outlook from global finances and economists might help stocks and crude oil. In the final analysis, Davos only has a limited and short-term effect on the financial markets, but the meeting can provide pointers on which direction geopolitics is going, and thus which instruments will move as a result. Of course, we at Fortrade will be following Davos and its impact upon crude oil, stocks, etc. very closely. So please do get in touch with a senior account manager if you have any questions or want to take advantage of the trading opportunities that Davos will present. Until next time, goodbye, and please join us at Fortrade again soon.